Live from Toronto, it's Hebsy on Sports, episode 275. Hi there, sports fans. Mark Hebsy here in the Little Italy studio, and I'd have a picture of Toronto Mike here. He's taking some well-deserved time off, as am I. This is a compilation show, the best of Hebsy on Sports, although I'm not sure I like that name. The best of Hebsy on Sports? I think it's a lie. I don't know if it's the best. More like it's the easiest to find without driving yourself crazy edition of the show. I don't know. And who am I to determine what's the best? I mean, that's not up to me. You be the judge. As far as I'm concerned, everything I do is great. What's the best? I don't know. If you said to me, that's the best, but that's not so good, I don't know. Up to you, not me. What's the best on the show? You be the judge. Anyway, welcome to the show, whatever you want to call it. Today we're going to talk some baseball because right now I should be at spring training watching Vladdy and Bo and Springer and Ryu and Gosman and all the Blue Jays, the 2022 Blue Jays, who were 9-1 to win the World Series when I made a bet with Bodog. 9-1. Will there be a World Series? I don't know. I hope so. It doesn't look like it right now because there are evil forces trying to prevent me from winning my bet on the Jays. Let's forget about that for a moment, though. Let's talk about the beauty of spring training. How at this time of year, just the anticipation of baseball is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. But who knows what's going to happen. My first spring training was 1978. In my early days as a sports reporter in radio, I got to cover the brand new Toronto Blue Jays. By the way, this hat that I'm wearing is an original 1977 Blue Jays hat that my late brother Barry wore for many years, and I am wearing it now, and it fits like a glove. It's beautiful. But anyway, my early days as a sports reporter also, how excited were we about the 2021 Toronto Blue Jays? Here's the clip. Spring training was always something that baseball was so great at. The reason they came up with the idea of spring training is they wanted 6 weeks before the start of the season, in February, early March, for people to already start talking about baseball.
Right.
And it was free publicity for the baseball teams.
Sure.
Come on down to Florida or Arizona. Come on down. Send a reporter, send a photographer, right? It's nice. It's beautiful here. Write some nice stories. It's leisurely. You can take your time. You can talk to the players wherever you want, at the picnic table over there. Send the stories back to the people back in the cold north or the baseball cities. Get them all excited for baseball. Baseball was so smart to do that because they got all this free publicity. And by the time the regular season started, people were chomping at the bit to see their heroes because they could only read about them in spring training. It was beautiful. So when the Jays started in 1977, I was just finishing college, and I'd gotten a job in broadcasting. And by 1978, I was working in radio. I was hired by Bob McCown at 1430 CKFH. CKFH was owned by Foster Hewitt, had the Blue Jays rights and had the Maple Leafs radio rights.
Right.
So I go down to my first spring training in 1978, their second year. The Jays radio network wanted someone to get audio clips that they could drop into their broadcasts. Now remember, this was only the second year of doing live play-by-play baseball. Very different from hockey because you got commercial breaks after every half inning. And I believe they were 2-minute commercial breaks, but locally they would try to squeeze in that extra 30 minutes, an extra 30-second commercial, make more money. They would always oversell the breaks and hope that the batter wasn't ready to go exactly 2 minutes later. They were hoping, maybe, but a lot of times when they would come back to the game after that added 30-second commercial, you'd hear something like this. At Speedy, you're a somebody. Base hit to left field by Rico Cardi. Like he'd miss the first pitch. If the guy swung at the first pitch, for example, you'd miss it. And so there'd be these complaints coming in all the time saying, hey, you guys keep clipping the start of the inning. You keep missing the start of the inning, where Tom Cheek goes, all right, top of the fourth here, and here's George Brett leading it off. He's hitting 292. And that's because the station would oversell. They would sell these extra local commercials, try to stick them in there to make more money.
Right.
And so they needed more content. They needed a pregame show and a postgame show where they could drop in clips. And Tom Cheek couldn't do all of that by himself. Early Win was never there. I never remember him during spring training. Maybe the last week he would show up, but he didn't do any work. He wasn't a reporter or anything like that. And so Tom would do these great features where, he'd sit down in the dugout or, down in the bleachers with a player and, hi, welcome to Countdown to Baseball. Tom Cheek, we're brought to you by McDonald's. And he'd go through the whole spiel. At McDonald's, you're a somebody or whatever their
a Speedy or somebody.
Yeah, it's Speedy or Somebody and by McDonald's, 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, whatever their tagline was. And then he'd get into the interview.
You deserve a break today.
And then halfway through the interview, he'd say, we'll be right back with Rick Cerrone. But first, this message for Speedy Buffler King. And then they would insert that locally back at the station and all that. So he was getting doing all these long features, and I would just be getting clips.
Right.
So first of all, they say, you're flying down. This is great. I fly down on Air Treetops or some airline that doesn't exist anymore. 2 stops, one in Nashville, one in Atlanta. The team is staying at the Ramada Countryside Inn on US 19 in Clearwater. And there was a restaurant attached that changed names every couple of years. But it's that, there's a motel. Where's the nearest restaurant? It was like attached to it. So you could stagger back to your room, after a meal or backgammon or drinking or whatever it was.
Right.
The room next to mine was vacant. The resident there was Milt Dunnell.
Oh, wow.
The Star's eminent columnist that I read every day from the time I could read. And Milt was there, I think, for most of the spring training. He was there for like a month. He'd come back and he looked like a roasted chicken, like sort of, crispy brown kind of a thing, right? He'd be in the sun the whole time.
Right.
And he was awesome. And I would go with him every morning to Denny's for breakfast. He'd knock on my door at 7:00. I'd be ready at 7 a.m. He was an early riser. And we'd go for a walk. We'd go for breakfast. He would tell stories. I would listen to the stories. And this was my first experience at spring training. So he would, he had some good stories to tell. Trent Frayne was there covering the Jays, I think, for the Globe and Mail. Allison Gordon, the late Allison Gordon, the late Christy Blatchford, Neil McCarroll, Clem Keeley, John Robertson. And most of these people they've all passed on. And we would go to a place called the Cecil Engelbert Complex, which was the Jays minor league complex, which was just a piece of junk.
Right.
And this is the major leagues. We'd go to other complexes and they were beautiful. We'd go to this one. It was like a high school place, right? With little tiny dressing rooms and locker rooms and cinder block locker rooms. And there were 3 fields. One of them was a half a field. It was just the infield. There were 2 batting cages. I think there was 1 pitching machine. This was the major leagues, and we were excited because, we had a team in the majors. But when you looked at the difference of facilities, you went, this is horrible, absolutely horrible. Right. And then the media, there was no media room. There was like a room with 2 phones next to Howie Starkman's office and his assistant, Judy West. You had bologna sandwiches for media lunches. That was like it.
Wow.
Okay, maybe a little cheese tray with some pickles. That was it, baby. And everything, the Cecil Engelbert complex was in this low, hot brick building. It was just awful. And they didn't even play their games there. They played at a place called Grant Field, which is a little bandbox park that seated 1,500 people. And the home clubhouse wasn't much better than the visitors clubhouse. It was hot and cinder block, 1 concession stand, and parking for like 100 cars. That was it. And if you wanted to interview a player, you'd have to do it outside where you could find a quiet place because there was no room inside.
Right.
So I interviewed guys like Jim Clancy, Rick Cerrone, Alan Ashby, John Mayberry, Rico Cardi, Dave McKay, Tommy Underwood, Dave Lemancic, Otto Velez, Otto the Swado, whose English wasn't that good, and he was reticent to speak because, as you know, if you don't have command of a certain language, you don't want to be misunderstood. You don't want to say the wrong word. So Otto was very soft-spoken and did not speak much English at all. He preferred to speak Spanish. And it gave a young reporter such as yourself, myself, me, a chance to work on his interview and interpersonal skills. Very important.
Sure. I
attended nearly every spring training camp of the Jays for the next 15 to 20 years. Wow. I did live talk shows from there on radio. Wow. 2-hour talk shows live. Sportsline went down every single year. We did live hits there. We sent back stories on the satellite. When I started there in 1984 at Sportsline, we had a crew in Dunedin for virtually the entire spring training. Jim would go for 2 weeks. I would go for 2 weeks. Don Martin would go for 2 weeks. Bill Bird would go for 2 weeks. Oh. Mitch Azaria would go. Frank Giannone would go. We'd rotate cameras down there. We would rent a condo down there with a pool and have our editing equipment down there. And we would work in Florida, sending back stuff to our viewers who were dying to see what was going on with the Jays. We're dying to find out if Cecil Fielder or Willie Upshaw or Fred McGriff was going to be the first baseman.
Right.
All that stuff. It was great. And after a while, as TSN got bigger and spent more money because they were doing Jays games, Global spent less. Eventually, we went from 8 weeks in spring training to 6 weeks to 4 weeks. Then it was 3 weeks. And it was 2 weeks, then it was a week. And then one year, I forget, in the 90s, I think it would have been around 94 after they won their second championship. I think they said, you know what, we're not sending anybody down. They hired a freelance cameraman and his girlfriend. He shot all these interviews and his girlfriend held the microphone. Only problem was she didn't know how to hold a microphone. Right? And so the audio would sound something like this. Well, I think the Blue Jays have got an excellent chance of winning the games next week when we play the New York Yankees, and as such, I think that and it was just awful. The audio guy would have to ride the levels. It was horrible. And you could see at the time that Global and Sportsline were going to spend less and less money because they realized that TSN was the sports network and that people would eventually go there for the games, stick around for the post-game show, watch the sportscasts and all that. And so they systematically just, okay, nope, this year, you're only going for a week. And when you're used to going down there for a while and it being a nice little perk to your job, and now suddenly it's February or early March, and instead of being down in Florida like you're used to being down there, you're stuck up here in the cold. It's terrible.
End of an era.
And that was pretty much it.
Yeah, end of an era. That's too bad. By the way, we got to shout out Malcolm Park, who's watching us live on YouTube, says that your Tom Cheek is excellent. Your Tom Cheek impersonation.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I've spent enough time with Tom, that golden voice. Okay, that was me and Mike from last February. Well, mostly me, I guess. I should mention to you right now that, as you know, single game wagering's coming to Ontario, all that stuff. But Bodog's been around for a long time. They've been taking your bets for many, many years. And now's a really good time for me to tell you that if you want to win an exclusive first run, limited edition Hebsy on Sports t-shirt that, let me show you for the viewing audience. It's top shelf where they keep the peanut butter. Is the expression, I guess, my catchphrase for many years. Anyway, you can do it. All you've got to do is go to hebsy.online/Bodog. Hebsy.online/Bodog. Get a free limited edition Hebsy on Sports t-shirt. All you got to do is open up an account with Bodog for as little as $25 all the way up to $200. Bodog will match what your deposit is up to $200. And then there you go. You can play with like a house money. You can bet on just about anything. And if you go to hebsy.online/Bodog and register there, well, guess what? I'm going to send you a limited edition Hebsy on Sports t-shirt. It's beautiful. It's got the top shelf where they keep the peanut butter on one side, and on the back, I'm showing the viewing audience here, if I can get it out, Hebsy on Sports. It's Hebsy on Sports. Anyway, there you go. So help out the show. Would really appreciate it if you signed up. And it's hebsy.online/Bodog. All right, I want to say a few things about the late, great Tom Cheek, the avuncular Tom Cheek, who was the first Blue Jays play-by-play man on radio, did every game for many, many, many years. And he was the one who I suggested go into television. He suggested to me that I go into TV. I was doing radio. I was doing the show Baseball Today with Tom and Jerry Howarth on the Blue Jays radio network. And he said, you'd be good on television. I was a young man at the time. And I had done a couple things at CTV for Wide World of Sports with Johnny Esau, and eventually got the gig at Sportsline. And Tom was the first to congratulate me. He was like, the proud uncle who saw this youngster who had potential and taught him a few tricks of the trade and watched him grow. And I'll always be indebted to Tom Cheek for that. And I remember at spring training, almost every year when I'd show up at spring training, I'd see Tom, he'd come sauntering towards me wearing this big straw hat. Because, the Florida sun is hot. And you could get pink and red very easily in that sun. So he always had the big straw hat. And he'd come sauntering up and he'd always let go of what's going on? What's going on? And he'd use, baseball expressions like, I got the bad boiler, which means you've got an upset stomach. My moss is getting too long. As your hair. Stuff like that. Anyway, Tom was awesome. He was great. And, spring training was just so relaxed. Back in the day, for the most part, you could talk to anybody just by going up to them and asking for an interview. Two of my favorites were Willie Upshaw and George Bell. Now, sometimes you'd get some really good material from them, and I found that if you kept the conversation maybe a little more general and not so much about last night's game, then you'd get some thoughtful answers. And one thing I had always done as a broadcaster, to break the ice, you ask the player about, do you remember your first professional game, or your first hit, or your first goal, or whatever the sport was? And everyone remembers their first. Am I right? Everyone remembers their first. So when I ran into a number of former Blue Jays at the Robbie Alomar golf tournament a few years ago that I was emceeing, I jumped at the chance to talk to Bell especially, because I wanted to ask him about the famous karate kick incident of 1985 where he charged the mound, let go a karate kick into Boston's Bruce Kison. All hell broke loose. It made all the highlight shows. It was nuts. No one had ever seen anything like that in baseball. Certainly not in Toronto. But in order to build up to that question about that incident, I had to soften him up a bit, which is not easy to do with George Bell. He can see right through you. And even though he knows me and he's known me for years, you just never know how he's going to react. Sometimes he's just playing around with you. He's just giving you the gears. So as his group was waiting to tee off at the tournament, sometimes you get a backup there where the group in front of you hasn't teed off yet and you're waiting and you got a few minutes. And so he's sitting in the golf cart and he's checking his phone. And as they're waiting to tee off, I just jumped in the golf cart. I pressed record on my iPhone and I started recording and he's looking at me like one of those looks like, what the fuck do you want kind of a look. But he didn't say no when I started recording. And so I asked for a few recollections. And here's our conversation. Do you remember your first game with the Blue Jays?
Yeah.
What happened?
3 for 4.
Who was the pitcher?
Carwell.
Who?
Carwell. I don't remember. Mark Carwell for the Milwaukee Brewers.
So that was your first major league game?
My first major league at-bat.
And tell me about the day. What happened? Did you get the call that day you were coming to Toronto? What happened?
No, I came straight from spring training to here. And I sit in the bench by for a 20-something game. And Mr. Bobby Maddock tell me the same day I came in the clubhouse, he said, "You playing today?" Wow, that was a shot. I went out there, get my mind prepared, and I went out there and performed.
Did you have a chance to phone home and talk to your parents, your brother, and tell them you were going to be in the majors? And
No, they knew it. The soon I came in the spring trainer, I had the opportunity to make the team, and I did make the team. And they dragged me along with them.
I remember that too. Number 11, left field. Maybe one of the most famous moments for you, besides 3 home runs on opening day in Kansas City, was the time that you took matters into your own hands with Bruce Kison. He pitched and you didn't like the way he threw it at you. What happened that day?
It's a long story. That came when he was in California. He didn't like Damo Garcia. He didn't like Lloyd. And I don't think he liked too many people when he was a pitcher. And then in Boston, he threw to Ramo and threw to Alfredo and Lloyd. And I said, you guys got to go out there and get him. If he hit me, I'm going to go out there and get him. And I did.
And that's not something you don't want to be remembered for that. But that was a key. That season, you lit a fire under the rest of the team, I think.
Well, but in the old days in the big league, the young team like we used to have, like Lloyd, Jesse, myself, Damo, Alfredo, Garth, Willie Upshaw. Those guys, they can't handle it. We beat them, and they start pitching inside and knocked us down, on the ground, and we got up, and sometimes 3-4 strike out, and we went in the meeting, and I said, hey, they got to stop, man. They got to own, we got to own their respect, the same way we respect them. If it's not going to work like that, we're going to go out here and get them.
Toughest opponent that you ever faced? Who was the one guy that you knew you were always going to get a tough game from?
Mike Boddicker.
Mike Boddicker. Well, he threw a lot of off-speed stuff?
Well, he was very difficult at that to read when he was pitching, and he threw our curveball, changeup, and to like an 85, 86 mile per hour fastball, and you were always off balance. And he got my number for a while, but I think I finished, in my career, I finished, hitting him real good.
Proudest moment as a Blue Jay?
85.
The whole season?
The great moment ever.
Indeed. That 85 team and the exciting 7-game loss to the Royals. Maybe it wasn't exciting for you. It was exciting. They went 7 games, their first playoff series. They lost to the Royals, who were the eventual World Series champion. So that series, that 85 team, was probably the high point for Bell. Even though he won the American League MVP in 1987, the Jays struggled down the stretch. Choked. Lost 7 games in a row. and lost on the last day to Detroit. And Bell was like 4 for 44. So that was not a great, even though he won the MVP, not a great finish to the season. In '89, he was a key player on the Jays in their championship season, and they lost to Oakland in the American League Championship Series. But still, I would say that '85 season for sure the high point for George Bell. And I tell you, he was argumentative, he was unpredictable, he was sensational. He could carry the team on his back, and he was quite the character. As Garth Orge told us on last week's show about just George was just awesome, man. They loved him. And why wouldn't you? That guy, every time he came to the plate, there was a chance he could break the game wide open. By contrast, Willie Upshaw was the steady Eddie of the Jays. He didn't talk an awful lot. Let his play do the talking. And was more of a background player behind the Bell, Barfield, Mosby outfield and Tony Fernandez and the pitching staff. But anyway, I saw Willie Upshaw mature before my eyes. He and I about the same age, and we sort of came up together in '78. First spring training for him, first spring training for me. When you're the same age as the player, around the same age, and you're just sort of starting out, you get a bit of a kinship there. And, the Blue Jays thought that Willie Upshaw was talented enough that he could play first base. Eventually, he started in the outfield, but they let John Mayberry go because of Upshaw. He took over for Mayberry at first base and did a pretty good job, solid job for a number of years. And watching him develop into a great ball player, a fine ball player, not great, but fine, steady ball player, and an effective teammate. He was the kind of guy who could settle George Bell down. A little bit, he was more even-keeled, let's say. Didn't get too high with the highs, didn't get too low with the lows. And that same day at the Alomar tournament, in fact, like 2 groups behind Bell, was Willie Upshaw's group. And I naturally took advantage of the situation, flagged him down, reintroduced myself, how's it going? And we had a really nice conversation, starting with his memories, beginning with his very first Major League game.
My heart was probably beating, out of my body for sure. We were playing in Detroit, an old famous stadium, which everybody loved to play in. It was tremendous. And I faced Jack Billingham, old Cincinnati Red pitcher, started pitching with Detroit, and I walked my first time up, and then the second time up I got a hit. So it was actually a pretty good day for me.
So your first hit was against Jack Billingham?
Jack Billingham.
What about the first home run?
First home run is my rookie year. I was still 20, just turning 21. It was off Goose Gossage in Yankee Stadium. Yeah, I mean, that was a big thrill. He was closing the game, and I think I tied up the game.
So you were with the Jays in the lean years, in the first few years there, but the team got pretty good pretty quickly, starting in about '82.
Yes.
What was it like being part of that ride to success?
Well, it was great. But, Bobby Cox gave me a chance to play every day, trading John so I could play. And we got Bell, Barfield, and Mosby, young guys, and Ernie, and Garth, and Rance, and we just kind of played pretty good that year. And I think I led the club in home runs and RBIs that year. Hit 275 and drove in 75, hit 21, hit my first 20 home run year. And from there, we knew that, hey, now we're going to get better. Yeah, it was great.
I think you started as an outfielder and then switched to first base?
Well, I came up in the minor leagues with the Yankees playing both positions. I took my 100 ground balls every day, took my 100 fly balls every day, and I was really more suited for first base and, arm strength and whatnot, and I like being close to the action. So when they came along, it was kind of a natural fit for me.
Did Mayberry teach you some tricks around first base? How did you learn to play around the bag?
Well, in those days, I mean, you got your ground balls and you had an instructor work with you. Jimmy Williams was great. Billy Smith was great with me. And then, with John, it was just, hey, watch, and learn. And I learned the nuances of first base.
Some players don't like to give up their position to a young guy. Did you find that, were you worried maybe that some of the veteran guys didn't want to give you any of their secrets or anything like that?
Well, John was really good. I mean, Tommy Hutton was good. Tommy was a great guy, so it was good. I mean, they were playing and I was just learning, so I'd ask a question, they gave me the right answer.
Toughest pitcher you ever had to face?
Oh, God. Really guys who threw slow gave me more trouble. I don't think I could ever hit John Tudor. I just couldn't pick up the ball off of him. He pitched at a great angle when he was in Boston, and he got better when he went to St. Louis.
Did you find the lefty-lefty matchups really challenged you? Because a lot of guys, it was a platoon system. We got a lefty thrower. We're going to put a right-handed bat in there. How did you adjust to that? How did you make your manager put you in the lineup against tough lefties?
I mentally told myself as a young player that the lefty's going to hit me or I'm going to hit him, but I'm not moving off the ball. Once I learned not to move off the ball, I did really pretty well against left-hand pitching, and I wanted to play every day. So you better, mentally learn, so physically you can learn.
Greatest moment as a Blue Jay, what was it?
85. Come on, winning the pennant in 85. Wow, what a year we had.
Any particular game or moment during that season?
We lost the game on Friday night that we should have won to win the pennant. We lost it. We didn't get any sleep. We came back and beat the Yankees like 7-3 on Saturday, and Lloyd and I hit back-to-back homers, and it was a great thrill. Our first pennant.
And that catch by George in left field, and no one will ever forget that.
Yeah, Doyle had, I think he got 15 fly ball outs that day. So it was a great day.
Next to the Joe Carter home run, I think that final out to clinch the division in 1985 is one of the greatest, most euphoric moments for Blue Jays fans. When you consider that 6 years earlier, they were the worst team in Major League Baseball. I covered that team in 1979. They were awful, absolutely awful. And so to see that development from that point, how the Jays, turned things around, made Bobby Maddock their manager for a couple of years, even though he was the oldest manager in the majors. He was in his 70s. They knew that when the time came, they would get a great manager who could, take these young players and get some key players as well and turn them into a championship team. And I guess they were just waiting for Bobby Cox to come along in 1982. So that was then. But what about the Jays of today? In fact, last year, if you think about what happened in 2021, when the Jays, before the season even began, decided to open the purse strings again after they had signed Jin Ryu in 2020 to a free agent contract, they went out and got George Springer, who was the most sought-after free agent, to play center field for them. Pretty heady stuff. 6 years, $150 million. And all this anticipation of Springer coming in, in the middle of a pandemic, sure, and uncertainty and all that, but still. And what does he do? The first couple days in camp, he strains his oblique muscle. I don't know how he did that. And then he suffered another injury in spring training that prevented him from starting the season. So there's all this talk and hype about George Springer, and like he wasn't even available to start the season. And when I was just frustrated as a Blue Jay fan. I wanted to see the guy play, and I thought, how do you get injured twice in spring training? Like, what was he doing out there? So on April 9th, 2021, opening season, Blue Jays, exciting young team, and no George Springer. And, frankly, I went off. Here's what it sounded like. While I'm at it, what's up with George Springer? Mike, why do we get these guys, the big hype guys, we can't even see them play because they're hurting themselves in spring training? I've been to spring training before. How hard is this guy working? What's he doing to get hurt twice during spring training? Not even a game. An oblique? What did he do? Swung too hard? Do PGA professionals do this? Brooks Koepka, I swung too hard. My rib. No. Spring training is to get in shape for the season. What the hell is George Springer doing? Okay? An oblique, he must have fallen on his wallet or something like that. and then a low-grade quad strain while running the bases? What's he doing? Is he trying to be Usain Bolt out there? Jog the bases. It's not a game. Look, if a guy gets hurt playing in a game, trying to stretch a double into a triple, something like that, stretching for a fly ball over the fence, diving.
Right.
I'm okay with that. That's part of the game, but not during spring training.
But don't you think it's prudent for the Jays to be overly cautious with Springer at this point?
Mike, how fragile is this guy? What are we talking about? A China doll here?
Well, we can go a couple of weeks without Springer.
Oh, hey, listen. If the Blue Jays went out and signed damaged goods, then I got a big problem. If this guy had a pre-existing condition.
Could you imagine?
an oblique strain and then a quad strain. Oh, he gets hit by a pitch and breaks his finger. Okay, it'll heal. But what the hell is this? And how many games is this dude going to miss?
Indeed.
I want to know if they really checked on his medical condition or they went, oh, we can get Springer. And somebody went, well, hang on a second. I've got some injury problems here. The guy's fragile out there. Maybe he shouldn't go to spring training. Well, why not? Well, because in spring training, you could get hurt. You could strain an oblique by swinging too hard. You could run the bases and pull a quad or a hammy, be out for a long time. And then what are the Jays going to do?
Will Chan he says you're on fire this morning. So
oh my God. And don't even get me started with Nate Pearson. Seriously, I'm going to throw up if one more person says there's the future of the Blue Jays. Is Nate Pearson can throw 103 miles an hour. This dude was wearing a sports bra yesterday, working out on flat ground. He hasn't even started his spring training. Okay? This is the most I've never seen so many injury-prone guys who we hear nothing but hype about that they can't even get out of spring training. You know what spring training used to be, Mike? Spring training was take it easy, put the cigarette down, run across the field, run back. Okay? Then kibitz around a little bit, whatever, and play a little pepper, go in the cage a bit, take it easy. Okay, I remember Bobby Cox saying, man, the last thing I want is somebody getting hurt in spring training. Take it easy. That's why we have spring training.
Right.
Be ready for the season. Can you imagine Charlie Montoyo? Springer, the hell are you doing? We need you for 162 games. Stop running the bases like, what do you think this is? Who are you trying to prove?
Well, that's just it, though.
I can run faster than you. Come on, let's sprint from first to third. Oh, my quad. Oh, shit, my quad. And everyone's like, what's going on? Well, Springer had a bet going with Jonathan Davis to see who could run faster from first to third. $50 bet.
I love what you're selling here, but Springer is quite the proven commodity. Like, I don't know if it really works for this guy. Like, this guy, I think we know what we got, and he might just have a little strained oblique, and maybe they're just being overly cautious because why rush him back?
Are you kidding me? Seriously, you think they're going to wait till he's exactly 100%? That may never happen. He was at 95% with his oblique, and then when he went and ran the bases, he pulled a quad. Come on, Mike, think about this. Yeah. What's next? Okay, is there a black cloud over this guy? Is he going to get hit by a pitch when he makes his first appearance? Here's George Springer, ladies and gentlemen. Missed the first 25 games of the season. Great to have him back. Oh, he's hit by a pitch, breaks a finger. Oy.
There's a lot of hype around this man. I mean, look at that. Look at that contract. I hope it's young Mike was very disappointed at Bill Caudle. I just don't want to.
That's 100 years ago.
It's young Mike.
Bill Caudle. Look, Bill Caudle came with a lot of hype.
No, that's my point. Like, he came with a lot of hype and he did not deliver.
No, but he wasn't injured. He didn't miss the first 20 games of the season.
I know. I'm just trying to find a historical comparison.
No, we haven't even seen. I'm dying to see him play, but it looks to me like when and if he does play, he's going to be the DH to start with because we don't want to put him out in the outfield. He might have to run after a ball and strain another quad. Indeed, Springer would only play 78 games last year, but when he was healthy, he was awesome. He was fantastic. If you took those numbers from those 78 games and applied it to a full season, the guy'd be the MVP. He was unbelievable. And I'm a Jays fan through and through. Don't get me wrong. I did not want to see Springer fail. No way. I'm a Jays fan. So I don't hate the guy at all. Some of you may think I do. But I want to see that he can, play a whole season without getting injured or going on the DL. Is that too much to ask? I don't think so. I think it's pretty simple. In the meantime, the Jays were competitive all season long. But when they really needed to put the hammer down, they just couldn't do it. I mean, they looked great up until, early August. And then things got crazy. So here's a clip from August the 27th that illustrated just how tough it was to watch the Jays stumble and bumble their way through the dog days of summer. Here's the clip. So the Jays had a 46.9% chance of making the postseason on the 10th of August. Since then, they've gone 6-10. And they now have an 8.7% chance, according to Fangraphs. Thought I'd throw that in there.
Eek.
It's like you're at the poker table. What are my chances? What are my chances of drawing this card?
Yeah.
What are my chances realistically of achieving that?
What are my odds? And most people, I would think just about everyone, they look at risk reward in life.
Sure.
It's just a natural thing. So if I was a betting man, I would not bet on the Blue Jays to make the postseason at 8.7%, because that is betting on a long shot. And generally speaking, people who bet on long shots are suckers.
If you had asked me before I read that
Yeah.
8.7% that you got from Fangraphs, if you had said, what do you think the chances are? I would have said 10%. So I think that's about right. It feels like a 10% chance at this point.
Too many people have to fail. And at the same time, the Jays just have to run off 12 in a row. This is why I don't play the lottery, Mike. I played the lottery. Here's the story. I played it once in my life.
Okay.
Once. The very first ever Winterio draw was in 1975.
Okay.
I was working at a convenience store at the time, and a lottery. What does that mean? Oh, you can win. I think it was $100,000 back in those days was the top prize for Winterio. It could have been 50,000. I don't know. And the tickets were $1. So I spent $1 and I bought a ticket, and the ticket number was 77997. Anyway, they have the draw. It didn't win.
Right.
The next week, the winning ticket number was 77997.
Wow.
I went, holy shit, I had that number wrong week. And I figured that's about as close as I'm ever going to come. And I've never bought a lottery ticket. I have not, because I think it's just a sucker bet. But I can see with the commercials, your dream coach and the whole deal. It's beautiful. It's based on dreams.
Right.
Unfortunately, when I used to do man on the street interviews, whenever the big lottery was, a huge number, 40, whatever the number was. And you'd see these huge lineups of people who wouldn't normally buy lottery tickets, but they're lined up for the 40 million or the whatever draw. And I remember interviewing them, and people would say, okay, what are you going to do? This is half the fun. Hi, what if you won the lottery? What would you do with the money? I mean, it's a beautiful question.
Right.
And this one lady, she says to me, I put it in the bank. And I say, well, what fun is that? She goes, well, I would be able to sleep better at night. I'm going, so your dream is to be able to sleep well at night? And she said, yeah, and I would sleep well at night if I had all that money in the bank. I went, okay. People have different, it's not buying a yacht and buying a car and woohoo, traveling the world. And for some people, it's something as simple as being able to sleep well at night, knowing that you've got cash in the bank. Okay.
Well, like Forrest Gump said, right? One less thing to worry about.
Yeah. True that. Okay, so Fangraphs 8.7% chance for the Jays. And if you saw what happened this week, Ryu and then the other guy that they got, Jose Barrios, it was very exciting when we first got him, but his last few starts have not been very good at all. Both pulled early, putting more pressure on the Jays. And we have to step back and say this is a good team. They're in a tough division, but they're just not good enough. And all you have to do is look across the diamond at the White Sox and to see what they have. They have great young talent as well. They have a great leadoff guy, a former batting champion, Tim Anderson, but their pitching is exceptional. You're talking about 4 top-line starters and the deepest bullpen, one of the deepest in baseball, with 2 legit closers, Kimbrel and Liam Hendricks. Monsters.
Right.
We don't have that. So tonight we go to Motown. We get the Tigers. Maybe we can sweep them because we have to. Steven Matz against Matt Manning in the pitching matchup.
Gene Velitis points out that Scruff Connors won $100,000 in the lottery once.
He did. Jeff Neufeld.
Right.
Oliver Scholem.
Shout out to
Meanwhile,
TJ
the Jays
in
broadcasts
Winnipeg.
have gotten, what's that?
I said shout out to TJ Connors working in Winnipeg.
His boy TJ's working in Winnipeg. He's a good boy. Jays broadcasts have gotten, if you can believe it, worse. Unbearable. To the point where now you can just tune in, Ben. You can get Ben Wagner's audio. And by the way, shout out to Ben. Ben is doing an unbelievable job by himself. Okay? By himself. He is talking to the audience as if they're with him in the booth. I've been listening to a lot of his broadcasts lately. Took a trip the other day. We were up to Perry Sound, played a little golf. It was lovely, great drive. And I'm listening to the game on the way back. That's a tough job. By yourself. No one at your side, except for, I think, Tom Young, the engineer, sitting next to him in the studio, right? And he's, when he's at the game, when the game is from Rogers Center, it's fantastic. It's tougher, even tougher when you're on the road because he doesn't go on the road. You have to watch it off a monitor. But great job. And in comparison, you can now sync up the audio, Mike, with the TV broadcast. You can kill the audio on the television
and you can tune in the audio and sync it up. There's a way to do it where you're listening in real time to Ben's broadcast in sync with the video from Sportsnet.
Have you been doing that?
Yeah, it's great. It really is. Because Buck and Pat are not at the game. They're hundreds of miles away. We've gone through this a million times, and they're a step behind the play. And there have been a couple occasions where Buck and or Pat, I think Buck's dropped out. The signal dropped out a few times, which is very annoying. And the other thing is that yesterday there was at least 2 occasions where the ball was hit. And as it's hit, you're watching going, well, that looks like it's pretty well hit. But Buck's play-by-play is fly ball, left field. And then you're watching the left fielder looking up. He's not going for the ball. He's looking up, but Buck is still going a high fly ball. Oh, no, home run. Now, on the one that was a line drive, it's different because as soon as we left the bat, you could just tell, you know. And he didn't even have time to fly ball. Up ball, get up ball, get up ball.
Right.
But he's sitting at home in Florida.
Now,
and Dan Shulman is like 6 blocks away, but of course Dan has been doing ESPN games this week. He did one game till 4:00 in the morning from his home in Toronto with Eddie Perez, who's in his home, I think in Miami, I'm not sure. And they're both on watching the game on monitors, and it's the Dodgers San Diego going 16 innings. Okay? 16 frickin' innings. And they're up till 4:00 in the morning Eastern time calling this game. So Dan was not available anyway, and he's not going to be back on the air till Monday, even though he's in Toronto. And Ben Wagner's in Toronto, and they're allowed to go and broadcast from there. We've got these 2 guys in the States, one that won't come up because he won't get vaccinated, and one that's been up here already once for the opening series, and then, okay, go back to Ohio. Man, you have Blue Jay fans that are so loyal. They love this team so much, and they're just getting the shaft. They're getting pissed all over. And I don't understand why you wouldn't want to provide the best possible coverage for this team. You know, I'd forgotten how much was going on last year with the Blue Jays. Everything was just magnified because we didn't get to see them until late in the season. They were in Dunedin, they were in Buffalo, then they came to Toronto. They couldn't play in front of full crowds. I think I was at the game against the Yankees where they had the biggest crowd of the year. It was like 29,000 or something to that effect. And after that so-so August, though, that's when things picked up in September there, where the Jays went 19-9 in September. However, they never quite made it, despite being, an 8.7% chance to make the playoffs and getting close enough where, in fact, they had the number 1 wild card spot for a while there, didn't they? Ahead of the Yankees in Boston. And then they lost a pair to Tampa. Then they lost a pair to the Minnesota Twins. Then they lost a couple key games to the Yankees at home and were passed by both the Yankees in Boston and had to resort to scoreboard watching the last, a couple games of the season where they swept Baltimore. And then it was over. They missed out by a game. And then afterwards, strangely, for a lot of people, everyone was kind of congratulating Charlie Montoyo and the Jays on a successful season because they won 91 games. And I'm like, wait a minute. Please excuse the salty language on this clip, but I just wasn't that impressed with a 91 win season. Anyway, here's the clip. Toronto sports fans will settle for fucking anything these days, and I'm getting sick of it. This glad-handing and patting on the back, oh, we did such a good job this year, is nauseating. Let's go back a little bit of revisionist history. Maple Leaf fans, put up your hands. If the Leafs get out of the first round, how will you feel? Elated? You will. We will. Not good enough. Stanley Cup? Oh, no, we're not going to make the Stanley Cup. We just want to get out of the first round. Fuck right off with that, okay? Get that out of your head, or you're not a Leafs fan. You're not a real fan. You're not a real Toronto sports fan, all right? We'll do anything to get into the first round. How about the Raptors? Oh, we won that championship. That was good. We feel good about that, but we're not going to win another one. Going to take years now. Boy, if we finish the top 4 in the East, we'll be thrilled. If we win a playoff round, if we win 2 playoff rounds, we'll be over the moon. No championship aspirations there. Okay? TFC, hey, let's not finish last. You know what I'm saying? Canada, ooh, can we finish in the top 2 or 3 in CONCACAF? Maybe tie Mexico? Ooh, the Blue Jays are the worst. Oh, we're thrilled. by finishing out of the playoffs. All that talent we had, and we almost made game 163 with all that talent. We're so happy. We won 91 games, and we had 3 different home fields. Good for us. We should get participation medals. Look, if you want to love a team that didn't even give you a sniff of a playoff game, not even a sniff of 163, and you had to sit there and let fucking Rafael Devers hammer the nail into your coffin, all right? Oh, we won 3 in a row against Baltimore. We did our job. No, you didn't. You didn't. Me and Mike and 7 fucking strangers could have given Baltimore Orioles a run. Oh, the Orioles want to play spoilers. Come on, man. Hey, they won the 3 games they had to, but they didn't win in the series against the Yankees. Okay? And so they get a participation medal, and they get a pass because they had 3 different homes. So say goodbye to Robbie Ray. He's not coming back. Perhaps say goodbye to Marcus Semien, the shortstop masquerading as a second baseman in a land far, far away. Oh, yeah, he loved it here. Sure he did. Set a record. It's going to be tough to keep him, folks. So are the Jays really going to be a better team next year? Are they? Huh? Can they win 95 games next year in that division? 97? 100 games? Maybe they should lobby to go in another division because it's too tough. Okay? It's hard in that division. We're not good enough. We're 4th best in the division. Wow. Try being the Dodgers, win 106 games, and you have to play a fucking wild card. Stop complaining. Honest to God. But good on Charlie Montoyo. Did a great job. He should be the manager of the year. Should get big hugs from everybody for making it through the pandemic and winning 91 games. Because everybody is thrilled at the season and can hardly wait for next year. Oh, I agree. I can hardly wait for next year. But I need to see something more, okay? To me, it was a step back. They made the playoffs last year. They had a way better team this year. So I'm disappointed, and I'm angry, and I can't believe the 2021 Blue Jays might be the best team I ever saw play. Of all the teams, the championship teams, this might have been the most talented team. But they couldn't beat out the Yankees or the Red Sox when it was obvious that they had more talent than those teams. Am I right? Do they have more talent than the Yankees and Red Sox? I'll answer that. Yeah, they do. Was that talent used properly? Did that talent perform up to the expectations as a collective, not as individuals? Because each individual, had phenomenal seasons, maybe career best. As a collective, no, they didn't. They failed. But hey, never in the history of Major League Baseball, and I looked it up, will you ever again have a 22-year-old with the numbers that Vladdy put up, hitting next to a guy who set an all-time Major League record for the most home runs in a season by a second baseman, who's hitting next to perhaps the best all-round hitter of them all, still developing, who also has speed to burn and a baseball pedigree near equal to Vladdy, and a great head of hair too, who's hitting next to a former World Series MVP that has power and speed and can play defense. And were he not injured 17 times this year, might have led this team to a championship, who's hitting 5 spots above an all-star who drove in 116 runs and hit 296. Oh, yeah. And let's throw in a Cy Young candidate, Rookie of the Year candidate, lights-out closer. How about a former Cy Young winner, a solid right-hander we got from the White Sox who bolstered the starting staff? Oh, and a lefty who won 14 games after being on the scrap heap, plus a deep cachet of catchers, 3 of them, at least. Oh, yeah, I forgot about Lourdes and Grichuk. Pretty talented team. And with all that talent, they finished 4th. 4th! So no, I'm not happy with the results. I'm thrilled for all those individual accomplishments. Years from now, they'll go, remember the time that Semien hit 45 home runs? Remember he set the record? Yeah. Where did the Jays finish that year again? 4th. And what's Ross Atkins feeding me now? All the same as 2 days after the season's over. Oh, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And we're going to try to sign. Yeah. Let's do it. Yeah, that's the message for 2022. Let's do it. And that's it. There you go. That's it for this edition of Hebsy on Sports. The Jays certainly have the horses. I bet them at 9-1 to win the World Series, and like you, I got my fingers crossed there will be a World Series this year, and the Jays will be representing the American League. So, episode 275 of Hebsy on Sports is in the books. Thanks as always to Toronto Mike for production and inspiration. Hit him up at Toronto Mike. Thanks as well to executive producer Scott Allen. Thanks to our sponsors, NateMakesSoap.com and GoodFootDelivery.com. If you want to save yourself some money, when you go to NateMakesSoap.com, punch in the promo code Hebsy20 for 20% off. And when you go to GoodFootDelivery.com, punch in the code Hebsy50 for 50% off your first 2 orders. Well, there you go. We are back with another episode next week. Thanks for allowing us into your headspace. And next week, we're going to take a look at what happened in sports media over the last year or so. Sports media. We love talking about it, and we think you'll enjoy the show next week. It's going to be a good one. Until then, so long for now.